Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 24. And that means, being that it's day 24, it means that we are in, or we are just past the third mark point. We are 1/3 through the challenge, okay, officially now. So we got another 2/3 to go. And a reminder that your next scan, your third scan, is going to happen at the end of week 7, right? So that's not going to happen for another 4 weeks or just under 4 weeks from now. So just FYI on that. But you can see how fast the challenge goes, right? So 1/3 down, 2 more of these chunks to go. Okay, question here. Let's get into it. Feedback. This person writes, as long as I'm not the only one this would apply to, I'd love to hear some information on thyroid issues and losing weight. More info on additional challenges this presents. And losing weight when you're over 50 or after menopause and the additional challenges this represents. Okay, so let's start with the thyroid. Thyroid is like the master regulator for your metabolic rate, so for your metabolism. That is, if you have a healthy thyroid, then you're going to have let's just say this. If you have a thyroid that's producing a sufficient amount of T3 and or T4, I should probably say T3 and T4, then you're going to have a, quote, normal running metabolic rate. If you have a thyroid that's producing not enough T3 or T4, you're going to have an underactive thyroid, and you'll probably have to take medication for this. And I've seen people with hyperthyroids, I actually knew somebody who had a toxic nodule in their thyroid, actually that's actually a really interesting story. I guess I'll tell you because now you probably want to know. So she had a toxic nodule, and she went to go see a thyroid specialist, and he gave her some medication and said, listen, we're gonna have to do surgery, take out that nodule. And so she went with her mom, she decided to go see this singing doctor that supposedly heals you. Okay, sounds a little weird, but she went. And she went to see the singing doctor, and there was tons of people there, and for some reason it was mainly women. And anyway, I guess it doesn't matter, but it was mainly women, and they were crying. Everybody was crying. The singing made them cry, and it was very emotional. Anyways, they left, and she went back to the doctor, and lo and behold, if you can believe it, this toxic nodule, this mass that was growing in her thyroid, was completely gone. Completely. And the thyroid specialist was flabbergasted. He said he's never seen anything like that. So anyways, kind of interesting. So anyway, I digress, but you probably wanted to hear the story because I thought it is kind of interesting, right? Anyways, okay, here are some things that can help you if you have a slightly underactive thyroid, or if perhaps, maybe it's not a full-fledged hypothyroid, but maybe you're not producing as much T3, T4. So getting enough iodine in your diet is going to make a big difference. All right, we can get these things from foods like shellfish, chicken, beef, whole eggs, particular egg yolks, kelp. These are all going to be very, very helpful these are all going to be foods that are high in iodine. This is going to have a beneficial effect in terms of keeping your thyroid functioning at an optimal level. Some other things that you want to consider too. This is another reason why I like you guys to have enough calories in your diet, is because when we make a sudden reduction in calories, especially if we go on calories too low, your thyroid is going to acclimate to this. So if you're on a very low calorie diet, especially for a long period of time, chances are your thyroid is not going to function as it normally would. You're going to produce less iodine. So not going through these crazy periods of time where we're going through super low calories. Okay, and in particular, actually carbohydrates. So there is one downfall, there's several downfalls to not having carbohydrates. One of them can be a reduction again in T3, T4 if we're not getting enough of the enough carbohydrates in the diet. All right, so that is one One argument that I would make for having some carbohydrates in your diet, or perhaps even doing carbohydrate cycling. Now, carbohydrate cycling is when you go through periods of, so let's just say you're following a low carb diet, but then you have spurts of high carbs, a day of high carbs. Let's say you do maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's many ways you can carb cycle, but an example would be 3 days of low carbs and then a day of high carbohydrates. This will have some bearing on your thyroid. Okay, now this is in particular if you're going through low carbohydrates or no carbohydrate diet. So those would be the three major things that I would look at when it comes to maintaining a healthy thyroid. I'm sure there's some other things. There's definitely some supplements. I'd have to look into it again. I know there's a supplement out there called Glucosterones, I believe they're called, that will have some positive effect on your thyroid. There's some others that I'd have to look up. So maybe I'll do that and come and talk about it tomorrow. Now, when it comes to losing weight when you're over 50 and menopause. All right, let me start on this because I can probably talk. This is going to take me more than a couple minutes, but there's basically two things you want to pay attention to when you're going through menopause or post-menopause, or even premenopause for that matter, when you're starting to go into it. You're going to encounter perhaps a little bit more cortisol production. We're going to start to see a little more mass through the midsection and less on the limbs. Fat mass, that is. And so one of the things we want to look at is, and I know this sounds very trite, but we've got to really start to look at the adrenal production, and we want to try to minimize stress. Okay, and a big part of this is going to be sleep. So you really want to pay attention to your sleep when you're going through menopause. The other aspect of this is, contrary to what I just talked about with carbohydrates, is actually watching your carbohydrate intake. So this is typically why when I have females who are going through menopause, I tend to go lower carbohydrates, because when you go through menopause, you tend to become less insulin sensitive. Okay, so insulin's not working quite as well, and we just can't, or you're not able to, those of you going through menopause are not able to manage sugar quite as well. So that could be a couple things, right? It might be, not to go into the weeds too much here, but it could be that your muscle tissues aren't as receptive to insulin anymore. All right, so that's one possibility. Or maybe it could be that your body is just not, your pancreas isn't producing as much insulin anymore, or the insulin can't do the same. It's just not as effective at doing its job at delivering sugar towards the muscle tissue. All right, so you are a little bit, when it comes to partitioning sugar, let's put it that way, partitioning sugar in the body, where sugar is going to go, you get worse at this. All right, so one way to improve your insulin sensitivity, to improve your blood sugar management, is to follow a lower carbohydrate diet, higher protein, and some good fats in there. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I'm almost at 9 minutes. So I'll get to the message of the day, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow. What is today's message? Yeah, some people don't like to hear this, but it's so true. Success begins and ends with personal responsibility. Identify what needs to be done and take action. Right? It's all about personal responsibility for the most part. It's a hard truth, but largely we are responsible for where we are by our choices, right? So we just have to take responsibility. I mean, the great thing about this is if you know that is the case, right? Or if you believe that's the case, then your chances of changing your situation is so much easier, right? If you believe that there's nothing you can do and there's nothing you can ever do to change your situation, well, then you're in a lot of trouble, right? Because what can you do if you're not responsible for it? There's really nothing, right? So I'll say it one more time. Success begins and ends with personal responsibility. Identify what needs to be done and take action, right? Take action. Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow about some ways to overcome the dreaded menopausal effects of weight gain, right? We'll talk to you all tomorrow. See you guys.